There's 1 week left till the Dynasty update releases, and we got some new campaign information on the last developer Q&A. So what did we learn from the devs? Before we get on with the news drop, write in the comments if you're actually hyped or not for the update. A lot of the focus is gonna be on creating your own dynasty and the family tree. Come on, this is one of the most requested features in pretty much any Total War game out there. The AI is going to be less likely to declare wars if you're related to them through marriage. You'll get a bonus diplomatic standing, so because of that, they're less likely to stab you in the back. If you send a character to another faction through marriage or forced inheritance, you won't have any control over them anymore, so you kinda gotta be careful who you're gonna marry away. So we have a family tree and a dynasty tree. That means 2 types of heirs. A scion, who's gonna be your faction heir, and a dynasty heir. If you hold a ruler title like Pharaoh or the King of the Universe, your character heir can only be the scion of your faction, or the faction leader of an adopted faction in your dynasty. A character can have both titles, essentially, so as an example, Hector, the son of Priam, is also the dynasty heir and the scion of Troy. You can appoint anyone to be your scion as long as they're in your family, so if you recruit a random general, he isn't a relative, but you can marry him into the family and make him the scion. With all this talk about marriage and succession, we gotta talk about the kids your characters can have. So the game automatically updates every turn, right? And it'll roll a dice with every turn just to see if your characters are gonna have kids or not, and the percentage would basically make it around 1 child every 5 turns, which is a really weird way of measuring this. Why are we even talking about this? You can basically expect to have a new character generation every 20 turns or so, and there's not gonna be a limit to how many ancestors your family tree is gonna remember. There's gonna be no regency for kids, so you'll rule normally. Speaking of which, what happens if you marry 2 characters through a political marriage, so they remain in their respective faction? What's gonna happen to the kid? Well, the devs actually give a pretty good answer on this. So kids come of age at 16 in the game, and they'll stay with the main faction until then. After they come of age, you can either pay to keep them in the faction, or let them go to the other one. Ah yes, my favorite, dealing with Bronze Age custody. Just what the game needed. It wouldn't be a game about ancient Egypt if it didn't feature something very historical. Yeah, I'm talking about marrying your own family members to each other. You can marry any relative, so the dream of having your own Egyptian family tree, or should I better say, Egyptian family circle, can become a reality. Unlike the pharaohs in real life though, unfortunately you can't have a massive harem, you're just gonna be able to have 1 official spouse. At this point, you'd kind of expect to have a paradox-like civil war after your main character dies, right? But they said there won't be any second civil war, so to say there's not gonna be any sub-faction within your own faction. You'll be able to have inheritance represented through different means, depending on if your scion is a relative to your faction or if you married him into the faction. If you swap between faction heirs frequently, the guy that gets passed up in the succession chain will actually get a penalty. The Bronze Age depression hits hard, doesn't it? Now that we got some family tree questions out of the way, let's go to the campaign. The Sea People will have new starting positions when it comes to the AI invaders. The playable factions, the Palisade and the Shurden, are staying in the same location. There's gonna be more historical context to the position of the Sea People now, so you can probably see the Luca start somewhere in western Anatolia. The Aquesh are confirmed to be in West Greece, and the Chequer will be around Crete, so you can expect Greece to actually get raided by the invaders. But it's not like you signed up for a peaceful campaign when you chose the Greeks anyway. The Sea People have different personalities, so they'll behave more like the playable Shurden and Palisade. Expect to have a lot more intense campaigns and surprise Sea People empires popping up. Confederations are confirmed to work the same way as in Troy, so basically any faction of the same culture can be confederated with some exceptions. If you want to confederate somebody that's a vassal of another faction, they'll need to break the contract first. Yeah, we need a strong independent faction to get confederated. Everything they own becomes yours, and that also means their unique characters and units join you. Does that mean you can have Ramses and Setnakhte in the same faction, or Achilles and Agamemnon? Yeah. Now, a lot of players have complained that the campaign AI has been more passive in Pharaoh, and we can expect a lot more spice coming with this update since the raiders will behave completely differently. Even the Libyans, Kashkians, Phrygians, and the new Mesopotamian invaders will also behave like the Sea People, so they'll be able to occupy settlements, which is something they've never been able to do before. Another all-time favorite, seasons are returning. So their duration will scale with turns per year, so let's say 12 turns per year means you'll have your bonus spring replenishment and production for 4 turns. There's not gonna be any visual changes on the campaign map when it comes to seasons, except in the Nile area. About a dozen new landmarks have been added to the game, and yes, the House of Ea Nasir, everyone's favorite copper merchant, is coming into the game. If you wanted to meme spam, now's your time. A bunch of new ancillaries have been added to the campaign map, such as new armors and new weapons for your generals, but don't expect them to massively change the way you play battles. There's no cavalry mounts and there's no new weapon type, so you can't equip your generals with two-handers. Not gonna be a thing. New dilemmas have been added after a character dies. So let's say you really like a general and he dies, you'll be able to choose from a different variety of ways to honor him. These are gonna be different based on how the character died, so if he died peacefully, probably gonna have a chill option. If he accidentally fell off his chariot or down the stairs or died in battle, you can expect another turn of events. They really wanted to make you feel the importance of characters, and a character's death in this context affecting your faction. The Aegean and Mesopotamian courts will have new elite units that are tier 6, so you're gonna expect them to pack a really heavy punch. New cinematics have been added to the game, so for example, you'll have new Aegean and Mesopotamian Civil War start cinematics and ones that happen after you become the Wanax or King of the Universe. Speaking of new things, every culture group will have a unique UI. The minor factions will also get this too, they'll just copy one of the major equivalents. This has been requested by the players since launch, so it's pretty nice to see the devs actually implementing this. It's just really nice flavor. Speaking of more free stuff, they confirmed a free new soundtrack will be available for download featuring Mesopotamia and the trailer music. This will be up pretty much shortly after the launch. The Dynasty update is just 1 week away. Even though Pharaoh had a pretty rocky start, we might actually see the shaping of something really nice to end it on now. But we're not ending here. There's gonna be a lot more content, so stay tuned. And until the next time...